You ever look at someone you love and wonder if you ever really knew them at all? That's how it started. Not with a fight, not with a storm, but with a quiet, creeping feeling that something was about to go wrong. The kind of feeling that makes your skin prickle and your heart beat a little too fast, even when the house is silent. I remember the first time I saw her. She was just a little girl, standing on my porch in the rain, clutching a plastic bag with all her belongings. Her eyes were too old for her face, her hair in crooked braids, her shoes 2 sizes too small. She looked up at me with a mix of hope and fear, and I knew right then I was going to love her like my own. Her name was Tiana. She was my sister's child, but my sister was never much for mothering. Drugs, men, bad decisions, she chose them all over her own daughter. So when the state came knocking, I opened my door and my heart, and I took Tiana in. I raised her like my own, fed her, clothed her, sat up with her through nightmares and fevers and the kind of tears that don't have words. I braided her hair for school, cheered at her spelling bees, held her hand at every doctor's appointment. I loved her fiercely, the way only a woman who's lost too much can love. And for a long time I thought that was enough. But love, I've learned, is not always a shield. Sometimes it's a target. The first sign was small, a missing 20 from my purse. I brushed it off, maybe I'd spent it and forgotten. Then it was a broken vase, a lie about where she'd been after school, a phone call from the principal about a fight in the hallway. I tried to talk to her, to reach her, but she shut me out. Slammed doors, rolled her eyes, muttered under her breath. I told myself it was just teenage rebellion, that she'd come back to me when she was ready. But the distance grew. The lies multiplied, and every time I tried to pull her closer, she pushed me further away. Still, I loved her. Still, I tried. I remember the night everything changed. It was late, the house quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. I was in bed, half asleep, when I heard the front door creak open. I got up, wrapped my robe around me, and went to the living room. Tiana was standing by the door, her face pale, her hands shaking. "Where have you been?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She looked at me, eyes wide and wild. "I just needed some air," she said. I didn't believe her, but I let it go. I was too tired to fight. She went to her room, slammed the door, and I stood in the hallway, wondering when my home had started to feel like a stranger's house. The next morning, there was a knock at the door. 2 police officers stood on my porch, their faces grim. "Are you Ora Mae Carter?" one asked. I nodded, heart pounding. "We need to ask you some questions about your niece, Tiana." I let them in, offered them coffee, tried to keep my hands from shaking. They asked about Tiana's friends, her habits, her whereabouts the night before. I answered as best I could, my mind racing. Then they told me. Tiana had accused me of hitting her, of locking her in her room, of taking her money. I stared at them, stunned. "That's not true," I whispered. "I would never." But they didn't care. They had a report, a statement, a system to follow. They arrested me in my own home, in front of my neighbors, in front of the woman I had raised like my own. I sat in the back of the police car, hands cuffed, tears streaming down my face, and wondered how love could turn so quickly into betrayal. The jail was cold, the walls gray and unforgiving. I sat on a hard bench, my mind spinning, my heart breaking. I thought about Tiana, about the little girl I'd taken in, about the teenager who had become a stranger. I thought about all the nights I'd stayed up with her, all the sacrifices I'd made, all the love I'd given. And I wondered, where had I gone wrong? I called Denise, my daughter, from the holding cell. "Ma, what happened?" she asked, her voice tight with worry. I told her everything, my voice shaking. She promised to come, to get me out, to fix it. But some things can't be fixed. I was released the next day. Charges dropped for lack of evidence, but the damage was done, the neighbors whispered. The church ladies stared. My friends called less, visited less, trusted less. And Tiana? She was gone. She packed her things, left a note on the kitchen table. "I'm sorry. I can't stay here anymore. I need to figure things out on my own." I sat at the table, the note trembling in my hands, and cried until there was nothing left. But the story didn't end there. Because secrets have a way of coming out, no matter how deep you bury them. And the truth, the real truth, was about to change everything. The days after Tiana left were the longest I'd ever lived. The house was too quiet, every room echoing with memories I couldn't turn off. I kept expecting to hear her footsteps in the hallway, her voice calling for dinner, the slam of her bedroom door. But all I got was silence. Denise came by every day, bringing groceries, checking on me, trying to fill the space Tiana had left behind. She was angry at Tiana, angry at the police, angry at the world for letting something like this happen. "She lied, Ma," Denise said, her voice sharp. "She lied and you paid the price." I nodded, but I couldn't bring myself to be angry. I was too tired, too hurt, too lost in the questions that kept circling my mind. Why would Tiana do this? What had I missed? Was there something I could have done differently? I replayed every moment, every conversation, every argument. I searched for signs, for clues, for anything that might explain how the little girl I'd loved could turn on me so completely. But all I found was emptiness. The church was no better. People who used to hug me on Sundays now kept their distance. The pastor offered prayers, but his eyes were full of doubt. The women's group stopped inviting me to meetings. Even Mrs. Johnson, my neighbor, started locking her door at night. I felt like a ghost in my own life. One afternoon, I sat on the porch, watching the world go by when a car pulled up. Tiana stepped out, her face pale, her eyes rimmed with red. She walked up the steps, stopped a few feet away. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice small. I nodded, too stunned to speak. We sat in the living room, the air thick with things unsaid. She stared at her hands, twisting her fingers together. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I waited, my heart pounding. "I was scared," she said. "I thought if I left, you'd stop loving me. I thought if I made you the bad guy, it would be easier to go." I closed my eyes, pain washing over me. "Tiana, I never stopped loving you, not for a second." She started to cry, her shoulders shaking. "I messed up, Auntie. I messed up so bad." I reached for her hand, held it tight. "We all mess up, baby, but you have to make it right." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I want to. I just don't know how." The next day, Tiana went to the police. She told them the truth, that she'd lied, that I'd never hurt her, that she was just scared and confused. The charges were dropped, my name cleared, but the damage was done. Some people believed her, some didn't. Some just wanted the drama to be over. But I knew the truth, and so did Tiana. She moved in with a friend, started working at a diner downtown. We talked on the phone, sometimes met for coffee, but things were never the same. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. But I tried, because that's what love does. Months passed. The whispers faded, the stares softened. Life settled into a new rhythm. I started volunteering at the community center again, teaching cooking classes to young mothers. I found joy in small things, a good book, a walk in the park, a phone call from Denise. But every night, as I lay in bed, I thought about Tiana. I wondered if she was safe, if she was happy, if she'd ever come home. One evening, as I was locking up, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Tiana standing on the porch, a suitcase at her feet. "Can I come home?" she asked, her voice trembling. I opened my arms, pulled her close. "Always, baby, always." But coming home didn't fix everything. There were still hard conversations, still tears, still nights when the past felt too heavy to bear. But we faced it together. We talked about what happened, about why she lied, about the pain we both carried. We went to counseling, worked through the anger, the guilt, the fear. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Because love, real love, is about showing up even when it hurts. One day, Tiana sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "I want to make it right," she said. "I want people to know the truth." I nodded. "Then tell your story, baby. Tell it loud. Tell it proud. Let them see the woman you're becoming." She smiled, a small, hopeful smile, and in that moment, I knew we were going to be okay. Maybe not perfect, but okay. Tiana's return was a quiet one. There was no parade, no big announcement, just two women sitting at the kitchen table, learning how to breathe in the same room again. The world outside kept spinning, but inside our house, time moved slow, like we were both afraid to break the fragile peace we'd found. She started helping around the house again, washing dishes, folding laundry, sweeping the porch. At first, it felt awkward, like we were both playing parts in a play we hadn't rehearsed. But little by little, the old rhythms returned. We laughed at silly things on TV. We argued about what to cook for dinner. We found our way back to each other, one small moment at a time. But trust is a stubborn thing. It doesn't come back just because you want it to. It has to be earned over and over in 1,000 tiny ways. One afternoon, I found Tiana sitting on the porch, staring out at the street. "Penny for your thoughts?" I asked, sitting beside her. She shrugged, her eyes distant. "I keep thinking about what I did, about how I hurt you, about how I hurt myself." I reached over, squeezed her hand. "We can't change the past, baby. All we can do is learn from it." She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "I want to do better," she whispered. "I want to be better." I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. "You already are." Word got out that Tiana had come home. Some people welcomed her back with open arms. Others kept their distance, their eyes full of judgment and suspicion. The church was divided. Some folks believed her, some believed me, some just wanted the gossip. But we kept showing up. Every Sunday, we sat in the same pew, heads held high. We sang the hymns, shook hands during the peace, smiled at the people who looked away. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary, because sometimes the only way to change a story is to keep living it. Tiana started working at the community center with me. She helped with the cooking classes, taught the younger kids how to bake cookies, how to make a meal out of nothing. She was patient, kind, gentle with the ones who needed it most. I watched her bloom, watched her find her place in the world. I saw the way the other women looked at her, with respect, with admiration, with hope. One day, after class, a young girl came up to her, eyes wide. "Miss Tiana, how do you stay so strong?" Tiana smiled, knelt down to the girl's level. "By remembering that mistakes don't define you. What you do next does." The girl nodded, her face serious. I watched them, pride and gratitude warring in my chest. Maybe this was the reason for all the pain. Maybe this was the lesson we were meant to learn. But the past has a way of creeping back in. One evening, as we were cleaning up after dinner, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find a police officer standing on the porch. "Miss Carter, may I come in?" My heart dropped. "Of course, officer, what's this about?" He stepped inside, hat in hand. "I just wanted to let you know that the case against you has been officially closed. Tiana's statement cleared your name. There's no record, no charges, nothing on your file." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "Thank you, officer." He nodded, tipped his hat, and left. I closed the door, turned to Tiana. "It's over," I said, relief flooding my voice. She smiled, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Auntie, for believing in me, for forgiving me." I hugged her, held her close. "Always, baby, always." But forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. There were still hard days, days when the old pain flared up, when the memories felt too heavy to carry. Days when I wondered if things would ever truly be the same. But we kept moving forward, one step at a time, because that's what family does. We keep showing up even when it's hard. We keep loving even when it hurts. We keep hoping even when the world tells us not to. One night, as we sat on the porch, Tiana turned to me. "Auntie, do you think people can really change?" I thought about it, the question settling in my chest. I think people can grow. I think they can learn. I think they can choose to be better every single day. She nodded, her eyes shining with hope. "I want to be that kind of person." I smiled, pride swelling in my heart. "You already are, baby. You already are." The world outside kept spinning, but inside our home, we were learning how to breathe again. Tiana started to find her rhythm, and so did I. We cooked together, laughed together, and sometimes cried together. The pain didn't vanish, but it softened, like a bruise fading under sunlight. One Sunday after church, Denise brought her kids over for dinner. The house was full of noise, children's laughter, pots clanging, the radio playing old soul songs. Tiana helped set the table, her movements careful but sure. Denise watched her, a question in her eyes. After dinner, as the kids played in the yard, Denise pulled me aside. "Ma, are you really okay with her being back?" I looked at my daughter, saw the worry in her face. "I'm not okay with what happened," I said. "But I'm not going to let one mistake erase all the love we built." Denise nodded, but I could see she was still unsure. "She hurt you, Ma. She hurt all of us." I sighed, feeling the weight of her words. "I know, baby. But forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to move forward." Denise hugged me, holding on a little longer than usual. "I just don't want to see you hurt again." I smiled, brushing her hair back. "I'm stronger than I look." Tiana kept working at the community center, pouring herself into helping others. She started a support group for young women who'd been through hard times, girls who'd been in foster care, girls who'd made mistakes, girls who needed someone to believe in them. She told her story, not to get sympathy, but to show them that change was possible. Word spread, more girls joined, the group grew, and so did Tiana. One evening after a meeting, she came home glowing. "Auntie, I think I finally found my purpose." I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. "You're making a difference, baby. I'm proud of you." She hugged me, her arms strong and sure. "Thank you for not giving up on me." "Never," I whispered, "never." But not everyone was ready to forgive. Some folks at church still looked at Tiana with suspicion. Some neighbors still whispered behind our backs. Even Denise kept her distance, her trust slow to return. I tried to bridge the gap, inviting everyone over for Sunday dinners, family game nights, holiday celebrations. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But I kept trying, because that's what family does. We keep trying, even when it's hard. One afternoon, Tiana came home with a letter in her hand. "It's from Mama," she said, her voice trembling. She handed it to me, her hands shaking. I opened it, read the words slowly. "Dear Tiana, I know I haven't been the mother you needed. I know I've made mistakes, but I want you to know I love you. I'm proud of you. I hope you can forgive me, and maybe one day we can start over. Love, Mama." Tiana cried as she read the letter, her tears falling onto the page. I held her, rocking her like I did when she was a child. "It's never too late to start over," I whispered. She nodded, hope shining in her eyes. As the months passed, Tiana and her mother started to rebuild their relationship. It was slow, sometimes painful, but it was real. They met for coffee, talked on the phone, shared stories and memories. They laughed, they cried, they forgave. And through it all, I stood by Tiana's side, cheering her on, reminding her that she was worthy of love, of forgiveness, of a second chance. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Tiana turned to me. "Auntie, do you ever regret taking me in?" I looked at her, my heart full. "Never, baby. Not for a second. You changed my life. You made me stronger. You taught me what it means to love without conditions." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "I love you, Auntie." "I love you too, Tiana, always." The world kept spinning, but inside our home, we had found our peace. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. The seasons changed, and with them, so did we. Tiana's group at the community center grew, and she became a mentor to girls who needed a second chance. I watched her stand in front of a room full of young women, her voice steady, her story honest. She didn't hide her mistakes. She wore them like armor, proof that you could survive the worst and still come out stronger. One day, after a meeting, a young girl named Jasmine came up to her, tears in her eyes. "Miss Tiana, I thought I was the only one who messed up this bad." Tiana hugged her, whispered, "You're never alone, not as long as you keep trying." I saw myself in that moment. How many times had I needed someone to tell me the same thing? How many times had I wished for a hand to hold, a voice to say, "You're not your worst day"? Tiana was becoming that voice for others, and in doing so, she was healing herself. At home, things were easier. The laughter came back, the music played louder, the silences were filled with comfort instead of tension. Denise and Reggie started coming around more, bringing their kids, filling the house with noise and life. Even Ruth, who had always been the most distant, started to soften. She and Tiana would sit on the porch, talking for hours, sharing stories and secrets. I watched them from the kitchen window, my heart swelling with gratitude. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Denise raised her glass. "To family," she said, "to forgiveness, to second chances." We all clinked glasses, the sound ringing through the house like a promise. But life has a way of testing your peace. One afternoon, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find a police officer standing on the porch. "Miss Carter, we need to ask you a few questions about Tiana." My heart dropped. "Is she in trouble?" He shook his head. "No, ma'am. Quite the opposite. She helped us with a case involving one of the girls from her group. Her testimony made all the difference." Relief flooded me. "Thank you, officer." He nodded, tipped his hat, and left. I closed the door, turned to Tiana. "I'm proud of you, baby. You're making a difference." She smiled, her eyes shining. "I learned from the best." As the year drew to a close, I found myself reflecting on everything we'd been through. The pain, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the healing, the forgiveness, the love. I realized that life isn't about avoiding pain. It's about facing it, learning from it, and letting it make you stronger. I thought about the day Tiana came back, the day she asked for forgiveness, the day we started over, and I realized that every tear, every heartbreak, every hard conversation had led us here to a place of peace, of acceptance, of hope. If you're listening to this, maybe you've been betrayed. Maybe you've been hurt by someone you loved. Maybe you're struggling to forgive, to move forward, to find your way back to yourself. Let me tell you, you're not alone. We all have stories we wish we could rewrite. We all have moments we wish we could take back, but the only way forward is through. Through the pain, through the truth, through the hard work of healing. And on the other side, there's hope, there's love, there's a new kind of family built not on secrets, but on honesty and grace. So if you're sitting in the dark wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, know this, you will. It might take time, it might take tears, but you will. And when you do, you'll look back and see that every broken piece was just making room for something stronger. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting me share my truth. If this touched your heart, if you saw yourself in these words, I hope you'll share your own story in the comments. Let's build a community where no one has to heal alone. If you haven't already, tap the like button and subscribe to Tales of Ora Mae for more true stories of love, loss, and the lessons that make us who we are. You can support this journey with a super thanks, or just by sharing this video with someone who needs to hear it. Sending love your way. See you in the next story. And remember, the truth might hurt, but it also sets you free. A new year dawned, and with it, a sense of hope I hadn't felt in a long time. The pain of Tiana's betrayal was still there, but it no longer defined me or her. We had learned to live with the truth, to let it shape us without letting it break us. Tiana's group at the community center flourished. She became a mentor, a friend, a beacon for girls who needed someone to believe in them. I watched her stand in front of those young women, her voice steady, her story honest. She didn't hide her scars. She wore them with pride, proof that you could survive the worst and still come out stronger. At home, our family was closer than ever. Denise and Reggie brought their kids over every Sunday. Ruth and Tiana became inseparable, their laughter filling the house. We cooked together, danced in the kitchen, shared stories late into the night. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Tiana turned to me. "Auntie, do you think people ever really change?" I thought about it, the question settling in my chest. I think people can grow. I think they can learn. I think they can choose to be better every single day. She smiled, her eyes shining with hope. I want to be that kind of person. I squeezed her hand, pride swelling in my heart. You already are, baby. You already are. If you're listening to this, maybe you've been betrayed. Maybe you've been hurt by someone you loved. Maybe you're struggling to forgive, to move forward, to find your way back to yourself. Let me tell you, you're not alone. We all have stories we wish we could rewrite. We all have moments we wish we could take back, but the only way forward is through. Through the pain, through the truth, through the hard work of healing. And on the other side, there's hope, there's love, there's a new kind of family built not on secrets, but on honesty and grace. So if you're sitting in the dark wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, know this, you will. It might take time, it might take tears, but you will. And when you do, you'll look back and see that every broken piece was just making room for something stronger. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting me share my truth. If this touched your heart, If you saw yourself in these words, I hope you'll share your own story in the comments. Let's build a community where no one has to heal alone. If you haven't already, tap the like button and subscribe to Tales of Ora Mae for more true stories of love, loss, and the lessons that make us who we are. You can support this journey with a super thanks, or just by sharing this video with someone who needs to hear it. Sending love your way. See you in the next story. And remember, the truth might hurt, but it also sets you free.